I'm here with Bryan Schwarts with Levenfeld Pearlstein talking about business development. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. I've got a couple questions for you and just wanted to get your take on a little bit about your legal background leading up to your current role in the firm.
Well, I started out as a lawyer in the distressed area. Bankruptcy, workouts, representing lenders, that type of stuff. I started managing a firm when I was 36, and that was a predecessor firm that eventually grew together with this firm in 1999. So I was managing and building law firms and different practice areas for the last 16 years, and within the last year, effective January 1, 2013, Yes, 2013. I went back to practicing and business development and the like.
Okay, terrific. And do me a favor, just compare the legal industry now versus, say, 10 or 15 years ago. Some of the things that you've seen that have really changed.
Well, that's part of the problem, isn't it? For all the change that lawyers think they're going through, I don't think it's begun to scratch the surface. And so one area that has not really evolved is, the development of a real business culture within law firms. I just think that law firms really give lip service to that, and they're still in the eat what you kill model, and everything's disguised around that. So there's not real management, there's not real support systems, there's not real structure in the way that a normal functioning business would have. And I think that law firms are at least 10 or 15 years behind accounting firms and, lagging at the bottom of professional service firms in terms of their development as a business. So, however, the business clients have changed a lot. Their impression of lawyers, how they deal with lawyers, that's changed. The thing that is most surprising to me is how we're still billing by the hour. And at the end of the day, this is what clients want. And I really attribute it to a knowledge gap. So the knowledge gap is what somebody in-house or in a business knows about what something should cost and the price at which lawyers should charge and how they go about the process of charging. And so if there was someone in the middle who was essentially effectively able to develop a market, and I'm not talking about LegalZoom LLC, whatever that is, that has a purpose. It's a good purpose, but it doesn't dictate how business is done in a sophisticated way. Mm-hmm. It tells you there's certain commoditization going on, and there's certain large amount of commoditization even within sophistication. And lawyers haven't really figured out how to manage that, how to price it, and really how to communicate it to clients. So in that respect, I don't see a lot of change. I don't see a lot of clients. I see clients clamoring for this is the most I want to pay for something without an understanding of what's really involved, what it should cost. It's just not been the development, the marketplace like I thought there was. And it's always easy for an in-house counsel to say, cut your fees. But lawyers are inefficient on the hourly model. So even if you cut the fees by 10%, the real question for that client is, well, how does this help you with your budget? Mm-hmm. For an in-house counsel, you have to make budget. And so cutting a lawyer's fee by 10% is practically useless. And I never really understood it. And I would have these conversations with in-house counsel for years now. And their larger concern would be, well, what if we don't spend as much money or time as we thought we would? And, I always looked at relationships on I forgot who paid for lunch last, rather than I will get every nickel out of you. Mm-hmm. So, so that hasn't really changed that much. And, the tensions are there, but the sea change hasn't really taken place in the way that I thought and quite frankly wished it would.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like it's moving along very slowly, but
it's unbelievably painstakingly slow.
Yeah. So let's switch the tone a little bit here and talk a little bit about was there a defining moment that you remember as you were building your own practice where you just said, I enjoy rainmaking, or this is what I'm best at, or this is what I enjoy?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So there was a lawyer who would call me up for bankruptcy questions all the time, and I always believed in the pay it forward model. If I could help somebody, I will pay it forward. I will not expect a quid pro quo, and it will just be good karma all the way around, and it will work out. And there's nothing more simple than that. There's nothing more effective. Because people want to be with people who are positive and not cynical and afraid of everything. And, if you're positive and you're helpful and you help people maneuver through their problems, rather than saying, oh my goodness, this is going to be horrible. So I got a situation presented to me that was kind of horrible. And I was able to say, well, here's what I would do. Here's how I might handle the situation. And about 6 months later, the situation had progressively gotten worse. So this person asked me to get involved. I got involved. There wasn't really a client there. So I had to essentially create a client because it was a class of investors, within a bankruptcy. And so I remember creating this idea for a client, having the client be filled in almost like paint by numbers, and all of a sudden you're painting inside the lines around the numbers. And so and I just remember the feeling of going from being 33. It was like during those times, which it's 20 years ago. I think we billed $300,000 at like $250 an hour. Yeah. So that's real money.
Yeah.
And so as a younger lawyer creating this from scratch and feeling that I was able to create things and people were willing to pay me to create ideas was really cool, really fun. I really like it and still like it.
Yeah, that's great. So there are maybe some skeptics out there that feel like they're probably giving too much away. That the pay it forward model makes sense. They get it. I get it. How it works. However, I'm concerned that if I give out too much information, they may not need me, or there may be an issue with that. Any thoughts on that?
Categorically disagree with that.
Okay.
The people who say, clients know when you're saying, I'll give you more information if you pay me, but I'm not going to give it to you until you pay me. My view is, I'm going to give you more than you expected to get. And I'm going to start a relationship like that. Because my focus and how I try to get business is through trust. And so when somebody's billing by the hour, there's an inherent mistrust. And there's an inherent unknown and uncertainty. And what I'm trying to do the whole time is break that down and build a relationship. So if I'm guarded with my information, and so what if I give this great idea and that person goes and takes it to some other cheap lawyer and they employ the idea? Well, of course it's happened before. I can't worry about that.
Okay. So let me ask you this. What do you think is the number one challenge facing attorneys today as far as business development? I mean, there's lots of challenges out there.
Billable hours.
Okay.
There's no question that is the biggest challenge for business development. Because on the one hand, it's positive because it forces you to focus on fewer targets. Because you just don't have the time to just, spray a gun everywhere and hope that you're going to hit a bullseye. But on the other hand, you might spend more time talking about what you and I are talking about, which is, idea exchange or experience sharing, and helping people who are going through things and for which you want to share your experiences. Yeah. So that takes time, and time is the enemy to a lawyer who bills by the hour.
In addition to that, what are some other tips that you give to attorneys to try to balance that?
So what I start with the younger attorneys in particular is you got to be famous for something. It's okay to be a generalist, but you got to be famous for something, because famous for a generalist has commoditization and price issues. Famous for something gets you business. So one of the examples I use is, and this is a multifaceted answer. Are you okay with that?
Sure.
So one of the answers I use is Skadden Arps. So Skadden Arps in the old days, they did the dirty business of M&A. And they were the only firm who did that. The white shoe firms wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And so what they did was they focused on it. They became the best at it. Well, if you look at Skadden Arps today, they're an M&A firm just like everybody else, but they do all these other things really, really well. So if you are outstanding at something, people will come to you because you're outstanding. If you're as good in your other areas, you'll get the business from that too. But the magnet is to be excellent at a particular area of the law. Right. Because if you go to a party and say, I'm a litigator, I'm a corporate attorney, people hear that all the time. If you say, well, I'm a litigator who does workouts for banks, that resonates. Yeah. The problem is lawyers are so risk averse. So risk aversion in business generation, I think, is the worst thing you could do, but it's a natural proclivity for a lawyer, so it makes sense. You want to be more focused. Take the chance that whoever you might be talking to may not be interested at that time in what you're telling them you do. But if you tell them you do everything, all they hear is blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Clients don't need you to be the smartest guy in the room, contrary to popular opinion among lawyers. What they need is the person they could relate to and have the kind of experience they're looking to get out of getting advice. Okay. And most people, if you think about yourself, how many people do you use in your business who are not the smartest people you know? But if you got an issue, you're going to them first.
Right.
You're not going to the smartest people you know. Those people have no social skills. They can't communicate with anybody. This is the vast amount of lawyers. This is the problem in the business, which is lawyers don't take the time to communicate people. I will be on the phone with other lawyers and I'll say, okay, and we're with a client, either in my firm or outside. I'm like, speak in English, please.
So to that point, then, is there one mistake that you're seeing happening out there that lawyers are continually making that holds them back from going out and getting a book?
Yes.
What's that?
I have to have my brochureware done. I have to do this. I have to do that. It's analysis by paralysis. I have to do a competitive market study before I could, take a step out the door. I remember early on when I was a younger lawyer, I was at my desk and I was a little burnt out and it was cold outside. And I said to myself, I got to get out of here. I got to take a walk around the block. I walked around the block. I ran into this person I hadn't seen for a while. Over the course of years, got hundreds of thousands of dollars of business. If I didn't just get out of my office.
Okay. So let me ask this: is there one specific business? If you're talking to a room full of 100 attorneys, and you have to come up with one tip that you just say you could go out and execute on. This is something that I did. This worked for me, and this is how you do it. What would that be?
It's going to be taken the wrong way, but you got to get your elevator pitch down.
Okay.
And you got to tell it to as many people in your center of influence as you can. Now, the lawyer, because everything is taken literally, says, oh, okay, I got my elevator pitch, I'm going to tell everybody in the world. No, that's not what I said. I said it's got to be around your center of influence. So you have to create a brand. The problem with people is they are not like Heinz ketchup. Heinz ketchup, you go anywhere in the world, you pour the bottle, you know exactly what it's going to taste like. People have a bad day. They are on sometimes, they're off sometimes. Mm-hmm. So all of those days collectively represent your brand. And so what you're trying to do is create an image for yourself in the marketplace. And in order to do that, it has to be a tightly wound message, and it has to be told to the people in your center of influence so people are able to say, oh, I know Bryan. He's great with dealing with CEOs and C-suite people, helping them to navigate through their growing pains.
All right, so my final question to you is, you now, and I think you've already shared, I mean, I've got at least 3 or 4 things that you've shared that I think, again, we can put out there today that would be helpful. If you had advice for an up-and-coming lawyer, someone that isn't already a $1 million plus rainmaker, isn't someone that just wants to sit and just crank out work and make that the rest of their time, someone that's in that middle section that has real potential but just hasn't, sprouted yet, the wings or whatever, what advice would you give to that attorney that would really be helpful?
So I've written this down. It's called Anatomy of a Successful Lawyer. Happy to share it with you.
Okay.
What you did at the beginning really matters in the middle. And so I break down the success model, and I've used this model in interviewing to weed out good, bad, and the ugly. So there's 3 phases of a lawyer's career who are successful. There's independent, strike that. There's dependent, there's independent, and there's interdependent. So independent means all your work's coming from somebody else. And so you're like a bird waiting for a worm. And what you need to do in that phase is you need to become an excellent lawyer. That phase is usually 24 to 31, okay? About 7-year gap. And if you don't become an excellent lawyer during that phase, you're really dead in phase 2 anyway. And you're probably going to end up with living in the second phase for the rest of your life, which sucks. It's like being a slave, okay? Except you get paid well for being a slave. You just have no life. So you don't get to interact with people. It's not fun. It's all about the F word, okay? So the second phase, look at the ages, 32, 39. What's going on there? A lot of people starting families. A lot of people starting, getting out there, networking a little bit. If you're not, and you lose that whole period, 32 to 39, you're dead. Because you don't want to wait till somebody's 45 and in a position to develop and send out business to everyone, and now you're calling the guy with 7 million people. So my view is a lot has to go on in that independent phase. So what usually happens is you get a little business, but you got a lot of other things going on in your life. You have to learn how to supervise other people. You have to learn how to deal with growing family, deal with a spouse. Mm-hmm. You need a higher level of emotional intelligence in the second phase. First phase, you could just be an idiot, billing time, but you have to become a great lawyer. In the second phase, you're a better lawyer, but now you're developing emotional intelligence and things that really are going to make the difference, and you're preparing yourself for phase 3. So the third phase, well, that's nirvana. That's the best. And that's where you're interdependent. And so your success is a function of other people. And when you lose sight of the fact that it's about other people, you're really screwed. This is where humility and the asshole rule comes in. The humility part is the people who become really successful. The asshole just stays above the interdependent stage, but it's not going into outer space. So, interdependency is you're counting on other people. It's more about relationships. You're not reviewing as much documents. You're talking more about strategy. You're on boards. You're trying to get out of your echo chamber. You know what I mean by your echo chamber? Mm-hmm. You have 10 friends. You say something. They say the exact same thing. That's a bad way to market. Okay? If the only people you know say the same things you do, you're in big trouble.
Right.
You need people with different points of view, different political views, different places where they live. They know, then you could use their networks as opposed to your echo chamber with the 10 people in it, and they just network with, it's like the same people in your own network. It's just a small network.
Right.
So the interdependent part is where it's really fun being a lawyer. The independent part is like Sisyphus. You're pushing the rock up the hill, the rock comes back down. You can't trust anybody. You have no emotional intelligence. Clients don't seem to like you. It's all about price because there's nothing valuable that you're adding. You're an order fulfillment guy. And so, my advice is get really good really early. That's kind of my pitch to younger.
I think it's fantastic, and it's an easy way to break it down for an attorney to say, I'm here, I'm in this spot, or I'm in that spot, and I don't want to be in that spot anymore, or I'm in Nirvana or whatever. So I think it breaks it down really well, and I want to thank you really for taking the time for the interview, Bryan, and for giving this information out to our audience, and we'll continue to hear good things from you.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you.